You're listening to the Active Mom Podcast with host Dr. Carrie Pagliano. I'm a mom, physical therapist, and your go-to guide for staying active with pelvic health issues in pregnancy, postpartum, perimenopause, and beyond. Whether you're a fellow mom, physical therapist, or women's health professional, join me where I'll share expert insights, real-life stories, and the latest research to help you approach running, CrossFit, yoga, Pilates, HIIT, or whatever activity you love with confidence and evidence-informed guidance. Let's start the show. All right, one of the biggest topics that you guys have asked about is nutrition. So I feel like I can't get enough nutritionists or dietitians on the show to talk about things. So we've invited Laura Ligos onto the show to talk to us about basically nutrition all the way through the lifespan for the ladies. So welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, how you got into nutrition.
Gosh, how long do you have? So I'm known as the Sassy Dietitian. For people always ask how I got that name. It's just because of my personality. Like, I didn't take no as an answer. I used to work in a clinical setting as a dietitian, and I hated that we were still doing things old school. We weren't questioning why people were getting sicker and not healthier. And so that's where my nickname came from. And I realized very quickly in working in a clinical setting as a dietitian that I wanted to be more on the prevention side of things. I felt that people were not being given the tools and the education they needed prior to becoming chronically ill. And so originally I thought I was going to work with athletes because I was a Division I swimmer and played lacrosse and was super active all growing up. And I was like, I'm going to work with athletes. And I still work with athletes. They're just also moms and business owners, and they have full-time jobs and careers and lives. But I no longer work with the elite athletes. Nothing wrong with that. It's just I found that I'm super passionate about helping women optimize their health while also building healthy relationships with food, because a lot of us grew up in diet culture central. I became a dietitian because I was an athlete and I wanted to understand how I could get an edge, but I also grew up with a mom who likely had an undiagnosed eating disorder and other mental health issues. And I don't think it was until her passing that I realized how much that had impacted me and my career, and how much I wanted to make sure that other people never experienced the fear and the disconnect that she had in her life. And once again, it was more just I think as a, young college student wanting to understand why she had such a weird relationship with food, why I was always being told no, and why there was so much control around food. So I also want to do that, help women escape from the diet culture that a lot of us grew up with. And some of us are still completely, surrounded by it still. So that's kind of, my starting point. And then I took a class in college all around Nutrition 101, and I learned all the different pathways of metabolism. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever. So I'm also a big old nerd, so I thought it was really cool I wanted to be able to share that with other people.
Love it. No, it's funny you bring up kind of the diet culture that we grew up in, because I don't think it really hit me until I had my own daughter. And thinking back, and my mom, we didn't have takeout because there wasn't any. We lived in the boonies. She did all our cooking. I mean, we talk about, farm to table. We had a garden for a really long time. There was always a starch. There was always a meat. You finished all your, your food. There's always a vegetable, all that kind of stuff. But very much watching my mom, she would eat different things. And, again, you're watching Donahue during the day, and then there's the Weight Watchers commercial and all that kind of stuff. And it just was subliminally there. And you didn't look at it as diet culture. You looked at it as this is just how it was, and to be thin and suck it in and all that kind of stuff. And I can't tell you how many conversations I have with patients every day where they're just realizing that too. Is that where a lot of I feel like postpartum is one of the first places that we're super sensitive about that. Is that one of the biggest connections that you're finding with patients is being, or clients that you work with is reaching back and recognizing, hey, this thread's been here a long time and we just happen to pull it and it's rearing its head.
Yes. I mean, Postpartum women work with me for a couple of reasons. One is that relationship with food. They're like, holy crap, like I never want my kid to experience this. Like I don't want to be tracking
Yeah.
forever. I don't want to be getting on the scale in front of my kid. I don't want to be having like, Slim Fast or whatever it is, like in front of my kid. So that's a
Mm,
huge motivator. And then also a lot of women feel like complete garbage postpartum and they're
yeah.
told like, you're fine. You're just a tired mom. And a lot of it's because they went into a pregnancy completely depleted because they had been told their whole life that they needed to be smaller, they needed to be thin, they needed to be on a diet. And so
Mm,
they went into a pregnancy completely depleted. They took a prenatal because that's what they were told to do. But then, we need so much more minerals and other nutrients to support a not only a healthy pregnancy and healthy baby, but a healthy postpartum mom. And
yeah.
it's a shame that as you've probably heard the analogy, like the mom is like the candy wrapper. And the second that the baby is born, everyone's, coming and taking care of the candy, but everyone forgets about the wrapper and throws it out. And so
Yeah.
I think there's like a few things going on with moms is that they realize that like I want to break this cycle. I don't want to be an almond mom, right? That whole like concept of the almond mom was like, she counts the almonds and she only eats like
Ah,
a tiny little bit. Like a lot of us grew up with moms who like my mom was no different. Like I remember the second I got engaged, my mom was like, "Oh, you can't wear my dress because I was 100 pounds and you're more than that." And it's like, who says that to a daughter?
oh, wow.
Yeah, like that's the kind of I think that's what a lot of people maybe their moms aren't that direct, aren't that toxic, but like it's those little things that stick with us. And our parents
Yeah.
and our moms are some of our biggest influencers as it comes to health and wellness and body
Mhm.
image and all of that. And it does take sometimes having the child to be like, holy crap, like I don't want to say these things. I
Yeah.
don't want my child to hear these things. And so I do work with a lot of moms who are now like recreating the narrative for them so that they can do better by their kids, but also for themselves. Because what kind of
Yeah.
life is it to live of just sitting there and saying, like, oh, well, I was bad today because I ate chocolate? Like,
Right.
you're not bad because you ate chocolate. You just are a human who ate chocolate and chocolate's delicious. Like,
Right?
like we have to separate some of that morality around food. And unfortunately, a lot of us grew up in a time where like you said, like there were subliminal messages constantly about the
Yeah.
need to be thin and the need to be on a diet and the need to be smaller and to, not talk about your health and things, like just suck it up and suck it
Yeah.
in.
Yeah. No, it's and I'm feeling like there's two particularly vulnerable points in postpartum. One is getting your body back, that whole narrative.
Mm,
We can dive into that. And then the second is when you're introducing foods to your child, like I know I went totally out of my way. Like my oldest, everything was homemade and perfect and lovely. And then I mean, because it was puree, I wasn't eating that. So like he got the good stuff and I got the trash. So I feel like there's these two opportunities where things can go awry. Let's kind of talk about that first one. The age old get your body back uh narrative. Let's tear that one apart.
yeah, like, can we talk about how dads get the, dad bod and moms have to bounce back? Like, what is that? Like, how is that okay? Like, you were the one that had to create life and birth life and then heal from creating that life and maybe continue to feed that said life. Like, there's so much that happens and so much that changes, and we just immediately think that the mom, the candy wrapper, needs to go right back to how she was, but she's never
Mhm.
going back to that person. Like, as a mom, like I can confidently say I'm not the same person that I
No.
was 4 years ago, and I'm okay with that. Like, I love the person that I have become. I love my children. I love meeting them, and I love meeting myself as I am today. And so my body is not ever going back, and that's okay to me. But most of society tells us that it's not okay, that women
Yeah.
need to go back to how they were and get back in shape and, go to and burn whatever camp and shred all the fat and do this weight loss challenge and whatever. And I, it's so sad to me that we can't celebrate what the body did
Mhm.
versus shame it for what it looks like. Like
Yeah.
it just doesn't make any sense to me and it's so sad. And then so I'm like super into minerals, like talk about being a nerd. And so there's this whole concept of like postpartum depletion. And so
Mhm.
I must say the word depletion like 100 times a day. And one of my good colleague friends who is a dietitian but works a lot in eating disorders and somatic experiencing, she always says dysregulation because she works a lot in nervous system. And we've
Mm.
basically decided that dysregulation and depletion are one and the same.
Mm.
And moms are like, hella dysregulated. I
Yep.
mean, like we are
Yeah.
overstimulated, overwhelmed 24/7. And so there's also this level of depletion. And with depletion comes things like postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, postpartum rage, all of these things. And we're told to either just suck it up, take a medication, or that there's just something wrong with us and we need to figure it out.
Mhm.
And then at the same time, like you're not thin enough, so you should probably also go on a diet and lose weight, which is actually the exact opposite what 99.9% of these women need because they're so depleted. And so
Right.
then what happens is that we're going on a diet, we're under eating, under nourishing, and now all of a sudden we're becoming even more depleted, which then leads to a wonky metabolism, wonky digestion, brain fog, insomnia. I mean, you name it. And now a lot of these women are also kind of like we talked about, I think before the podcast, was like women, a lot of these women are now transitioning into perimenopause as well.
Mhm.
And so perimenopause is a time of hormonal chaos. And so to become postpartum in a depleted state and then start to transition to perimenopause, like, of course, we're seeing a lot of increase in symptoms because women are just incredibly depleted, not to mention not supported and dysregulated and all the things. But to tell women that they need to bounce back when we're giving
Yeah.
them no support to actually bounce back energetically. Like my clients always say, like one of the first things they notice is that they're like not falling asleep during the day anymore, that they have energy again.
Mm.
Like,
Yeah.
and to me, I'm like, this is a like the most basic thing is to have energy to get through your day. And I would bet most women, if you could take out the vanity side of this all, would say, I'd rather have more energy than the perfect body.
Yeah. No, I feel like that's such a good point is there's these multiple things that kinda are thrown at us and, um, you kinda walk you have these expectations in pregnancy, and then you sorta walk through that portal, and then you're in your own postpartum scenario, and I feel like everybody's blindsided by things that they thought were supposed to be that were different, expectations, whether it be, like, energy, like you said, but then there's also the body image and throw the mashup of who am I as a person and, all this, like, as a parent, like, I feel like it's just it's a dumpster fire, and, oh, in the middle of that and I get this question all the time because I get a chance to talk to people, is they're like, "Well, I'm still fluffy," and they're, like, 8 weeks postpartum, and I literally have to bite my tongue, I kid you not, and they're like, "Well, am I supposed to be like this?" And I'm like, "I wish I could just like, there's so much I have to say, like, where do I even start? I wish I could just take my brain out for a second and just put it in for a second. They'd have a moment of knowing and then come back." It's like, how do you tell them how do you tell somebody who really didn't think that they were gonna be the one that their body would change? And
Mm.
you said, Everybody's does. It's not a secret."
Everybody's no,
Um,
everybody's does.
how do you navigate that, but then also help them find the healthiest version, which may or may not involve weight loss, but also match the energy needs of whatever child came out of their body, whatever work that they have, all this other stuff? Like, I feel like it's such a loaded question that starts with, "Am I supposed to look like this at 8 weeks postpartum?" Like,
And it can take, and I'm sure you agree with this, it can take 2 years for the body to go back to, I wouldn't even say normal, but to go back to a spot where it is more normal for where you were going to be in the season of
mhm,
life should you no longer have children and still
right.
be cycling. So that's like a very nuanced thing, but 2 years for your body to go back hormonally and physically. And yet 8 we're expected to go back at 8 weeks. I mean, babies aren't sleeping through the night at 8 weeks, and that's a whole
Mm-mm.
nother topic. Like, I
Right.
fell down the mom culture rabbit hole with my first because it was, like, middle of COVID and I had nothing else to do, and so, like, my baby was not sleeping through the night, and I was like, "Well, there must be something wrong with me," and it's like, no, actually, like, it's totally normal. Like, I have a now 11 almost 11-month-old, and he's not sleeping through the night yet, and I don't care. Like, I'm like, "That's biologically
Mm,
normal. It is what it is." Which also means that like my body's probably not going to be going back to normal either, but I also understand the physiological sign of it.
right.
When we are not getting a good night's sleep, our hunger hormones do not regulate appropriately. So we end up having higher hunger desire and lower satisfaction with meals. It's a natural response because if we can't get energy through quality sleep, where else can
Mhm,
we get energy from, right?
right.
Certainly caffeine and stimulants, but also food. Food is energy. And so it makes total sense. And likely I'm going to be a little bit insulin resistant, which means that likely I'm going to have a little bit of blood sugar dysregulation, which means I'm probably going to be carrying a little bit more fat. And so I understand that and I can like logically walk myself through that, but a lot of
Mhm.
people can't.
No.
And I don't expect them to. But if we could present this to women as like, listen, your goal is not to look a certain way. Your goal is to feel good so you can be present
Mhm.
for your children and yourself, right?
Mhm.
Like that to me is far more important and far more powerful than me fitting into jeans from 4 years ago, which by the way, I don't, and I don't ever expect to. Like I gave them away. I'm like, it is what it
Yeah.
is. Like I'm also privileged that I can do that and I can get new pair of pants. But
Mhm.
if from a physiological perspective, it is not normal to go back. And I can also tell you from personal experience with my first, I lost a ton of weight quickly with my first because I had severe postpartum anxiety. I couldn't
Mm.
sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't do a lot of things. So I was so worried about every last thing. So I lost a lot of weight. And you know what that did? That made my anxiety 10 times worse
Worse.
because I was so depleted. There's that word again, right? Like I was so depleted. My body did not have the nourishment that it needed. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, maybe, and of course I went to my doctor complaining of anxiety and issues. And she goes, looks at my weight and she goes, you lost all your baby weight. Congrats. And I was like, thank God I am who I am. But I'm like saying that to a mother who is crippled by her anxiety. And
Mhm.
now she's told that her weight is good. So she should just be happy.
Yeah.
Like weight is not equivalent to health.
You would be surprised how many women walk in, sit down in the chair across from me, and that's the first it's almost like they're apologizing that they messed up. They're like, "Well, I haven't lost the baby weight," or they qualify it with, "Well, I lost the baby weight, but I still have all these problems." It's the first thing that and it's the least of my concerns as
Same.
a PT. It's the least of my concerns. But I feel like and that's the part that's still frustrating to me now is, you know, where's that narrative still coming from that it's our value is in what we look like as opposed to giving us fuel to make food for our children and get them through these first couple of years and of sleepless nights and then going back to work as a full time and getting exercise back in our life. Like what why is that, other than f the patriarchy, like what why is that? It's like we're churning out moms and then there's like amnesia and it happens all over again. It's like they fall off a cliff and a new set comes up. Why is this still happening?
I don't know. I mean, if you think about walking into a doctor's office, what's the first thing that happens?
You go in the scale.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this is a systemic issue in so many different ways. And so
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, they equate their weight to their health. And
Yeah.
so and that is it's a first and you can opt out of it, by the way. Unless you need to be on a medication that is weight based, you can opt
Mm.
out of stepping on the scale. I just had a client today tell me that she has never been this happy with her body in her life, and the
Mhm.
only thing that we have changed is one, how she eats. She sits down and chews her food, like all the things, but she got rid of her scale
Yeah.
because every time she stepped on the scale, she said that 5 pounds up or down was shame that she carried the rest of the
Yeah.
day. And there's a time and a place for a scale. I am not an all
Yeah.
or nothing person. I
Yeah.
believe that the scale is there for a reason, right? We can look at fluid retention for kidney disease, heart disease, even for some pregnancy, for some eating disorders. There's a time and a place for it.
Mhm.
But to walk into a doctor's office for a knee that's ailing you or for postpartum anxiety, and the first thing you do is step on a scale, like
Yeah.
what message are we giving to people? We're telling
Yep.
them that your weight is indicative of, whatever your problem is.
Mhm.
And so clearly your knee problem is because you gained 5 pounds, or your
That
anxiety problem
oh,
is, like,
that one gets me because we have so much more data now to be like, no, being overweight doesn't actually make your prolapse worse. Being overweight doesn't actually make your knee pain worse. Being overweight doesn't actually do these things. Yeah, no, and I mean, fast forward up to perimenopause where, we do have body composition changes. It's like, hey, we're right back on the scale again. And then you've got stupid 20, 21-year old, trainers being like, oh no, you can same 24 hours in the day. It's not hormones, nothing to do with like, come on.
whew, yeah.
It's
Like,
a lot
and
here.
Granted, they don't know what they don't know, and also, like, yeah, the body is meant to change,
Yeah.
and we don't give
Where did we
any.
not get that in the
I
beginning? Like, where
know.
did that get lost in 5th grade health class?
Right. Like, I mean, you look at like babies and we celebrate them putting on weight. We're like, yay, they're gaining weight. The second we as an adult do, people
Mhm.
are like, ooh, you let yourself go. Like,
Right.
did I? Or am I now able to enjoy my life? Or am I struggling from hormonal issues? Or,
Yeah.
or is this just how my body is responding to the stress and life and genetics? And
Mhm.
it's okay. I just need bigger clothes. Like, I
Yeah.
think there's a time and a place where we need to also just be more accepting of our body changing, even if it is hard. Like
Yeah.
acknowledging that it can 100% it's hard. Like I'm not sitting here saying that like, I look at my body every day and say, man, I'm so glad that it looks this way.
Right.
Like I don't expect that from anybody, but I always try to say be body neutral.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to love your body every second of every day. Like, that's silly. But you have
Yeah.
to respect it, right? Especially as moms, like everything it's been through for us, like it's
Yeah.
been through a heck of a lot. And I have clients who it has been through the ringer to get pregnant, to stay pregnant,
Oh,
to
yeah.
get pregnant again, like
Yep.
to nurse or not nurse. Like it has just been through it. And then to basically say, like, well, F you body, like we need to bounce back, as opposed to being
Right.
like, man, you have endured so
Yeah.
much. Like, what could I do
Yeah.
for you?
Yeah. No, I think that's such a good point. And I have conversations quite frequently with moms where it's like, oh, tell me what these expectations are that you have. Let me explain to you how that differs a bit from what we understand physiologically. And again, all of this exercise included, like it's long game type stuff. It's anything that's quick is not sustainable. And even for moms that are like, hey, I'm going to get pregnant again or something like that, anything that you do to, great, there's a leaf blower like right there. Always during podcast time. Anytime that you start to establish healthy habits and things like that, that's going to carry over and again play into long-term health. And I feel like people logically can wrap their head around it, but I think where it falls apart is in the logistics, which is obviously where you come in. So how let's say somebody's like, okay, I got to do something here. I'm 8 months postpartum, trying to navigate this stuff. Like, what does working with somebody like you look like? Like, is it like you lay down the law right from the beginning? Is it that you find basic habits? What do things look like when you're in that first year postpartum?
Really depends on the person, but I think a lot of it is acceptance and understanding of like what's my situation, and
Mhm.
recognizing that what worked in my 20s or what worked pre-kids
Yeah.
is no longer going to work. Even as a dietitian, everything changed for me food-wise and for meal prep wise and meal planning wise. It had to.
Hmm.
And so I really like to implement journaling in my practice. And so a lot of people are familiar with like macro tracking, and there's a time and a place for that. But most of my moms, one, don't have time or energy, and two, it's becomes obsessive for no reason.
Mm.
So we do a lot of journaling to first understand like what is even happening. Like, are you even eating breakfast? Which most of the times they're not. Most of the time it's I'm eating off of my kid's plate, or I'm just chugging coffee until I get to the office or whatever it
Yep.
might be. And then, they're waiting till too late to eat lunch, and then dinner's a mess because the kids are sitting on their lap and whatever. So we draw a lot of attention to just like what is happening with I like to tell my clients, I want you to be an objective observer of your day.
Hmm.
Like truly what is happening, not because you're bad or there's shame or guilt, but just so we can get an idea of like, okay, at 8 months postpartum, like what does mealtime look like? What do meals look like for you? Are you snacking all day? Are you eating meals? Are you sitting down? Are you standing? Do you have
Hmm.
guilt? Do you have shame? So we do this like combination of write down the food or take pictures of your food, and then also journal how you're feeling. Like, is there guilt? Is there shame? Are you rushed? Are you stressed? Are you happy? Are you sad? Like, what's going on around your meals so you can understand. And a lot of women just become so disembodied postpartum because sometimes they have to be, right? Like this
Hmm.
tiny baby needs everything from you. And so and you want to give everything to them. It's like a complete maternal instinct. You just like they say that all the like hearing receptors in your ears multiply and change so that you can hear your baby, right? Because you need to be able to hear your baby so you can feed him and protect
Yeah.
him and whatever. So many things change. And so completely lost my train of thought there, but we journal. Oh, disembodied. So we become so disembodied that we don't even feel hunger cues a lot of the times. We don't even understand like what is happening in my body. What do I need?
Mm.
And so a lot of times what we'll see with women, we'll use like binging as an example. A lot of my women will say, well, I binge, I have no control. I'm really bad at night, or I eat too much, or I have zero self-control over X, Y, and Z. And I'm usually like, no, let's be an objective observer. Like, why is that happening? When is that happening?
Mhm.
A lot of times it happens because we're hungry and we have no idea that we're hungry because we spent all day listening to everyone else's
Mm.
hunger cues and not our own. Another thing is that it might be a completely different need, and we're trying to use food to fill that need, and that food will never fill that need. And
Mhm.
so every time we try, we open the chip bag and we take a chip, but we really needed a hug, or we needed to tell someone about our day, or we needed someone to ask us if we're okay, that didn't work. So we keep eating the chip because it's giving us, a hit of dopamine, that perfect blend of like salt, fat, sugar, whatever, right? Like that the food scientists have figured out, which is neither here nor there, is that we're keep going because we're like, okay, well, it tastes good. It
Mhm.
feels good. I like the crunch, but we keep going, not because we're bad, but because we're hungry and because we're looking for something that food is never going to fulfill. So no matter
Mm.
how many chips we eat, we are still going to get to the bottom of that bag and feel empty or feel sad or feel whatever it is. And so that journaling can kind of bring us back to our body and say, what do I need?
Yeah.
A lot of my clients, like I tell them, I'm like, you don't have to do a lot right now. We don't have to be meal prepping every single meal. I don't. Like, that's not to be expected in the season of life. But can we pause before we eat? A
Mm.
1, 2, 3 second pause to say, what do I need right now? Like, oh, I need to sit down. Or, wow, I haven't had a glass of water today. Or actually,
Yeah.
like, I can have these chips. Why don't I put them in a bowl? Because if I stand at the pantry and eat them out of the bag, like, I will have zero knowledge of if I'm hungry or satisfied.
Yeah.
And so it's just becoming more embodied and more recognizing of like what is happening in my day. And from there, we can then support, as opposed to looking at macros or looking at a diet and saying, okay, I'm just going to start keto today because everyone
Yeah.
tells me to do that. And we have no idea where you're starting from.
Yeah, no, I do that with my patients. I'm like, what I say is like, we can't change what we don't notice, and we have to start to figure out where's your baseline and where are the needs. Because again, like, and I think that's also why a lot of women fail because they're trying to do all the right things, and it's not sustainable. You can't do all the things all the time, and if you don't do the thing that's actually going to make the difference for you, it's not going to be sustainable. You're going to think you're a failure, and then it's just going to repeat the cycle again. You mentioned meal prepping. Um, that is the worst decision of my day. Is hands down. I mean, the two most difficult moments of my day. One is getting into a sports bra after you've gotten out of the shower and you're still kind of wet and you're kind of like strangling yourself. So
Yes.
that's like right up there
Yes.
too. Um, but no, it's like a probably when we finish the podcast, it's gonna be like, okay, 3:30, kids are coming home from school. They can't wait for dinner because they had lunch at 10:30 because that's what they do.
It's insane.
And
Yes.
they eat, and I'm like, I haven't even wrapped my head around, oh my gosh, what's for dinner? And of course, whatever you make, they want 17 other things anyway. And then by the time you make the dinner, they've already snacked, and then you're the only one left to eat the dinner by yourself, and you really didn't want to eat what you made anyway. So help. Granted, my kids are older, so we just made the leap to perimenopause mom, but I'm sure younger moms, it's the same deal. I don't remember this being
Yes.
any different when my kids were toddlers.
Well, I think the difference is that we have to be adaptable in how we meal plan and meal prep. And so what worked when you had 3-year-olds probably is not going to work right now
No.
because your schedule is different. You have a lot more opinions and a lot more hunger, right? If 13-year-old is going to eat more than the 3-year-old.
He can access the fridge by himself now.
Yeah, like there's so many different things
Yeah.
happening. And so I think we get stuck in this mindset of like, okay, well, I know that things were really good when I did X, Y, and Z.
Mhm.
Okay, but like, did you do that when you didn't have kids? Did you do that when you had 3-year-olds? Did
Yeah.
you do that when you had infants? So you have to really like meet yourself where you are and understand, okay, What do we need? And it's so hard to understand like every single person, because especially in your season of life, kids have sports and after school activities and friends' houses to go to. And so my moms who have older kids, there's a lot. I actually think it's way harder than the 3-year-old.
Thank you.
Because, but that's the thing, is like, it's hard in the moment, no matter what, because when you have a 3-year-old, it's the first time you've had a 3-year-old. When you have a, like, you're still a new mom. The fact that like people think like, oh, well, you should figure it out by now. Okay, but you've never had a 13-year-old before, right? So now you're figuring out the needs of a 13-year-old and an 11-year-old all combined in one, and also managing a busy schedule and a business and all those things. And so, it is hard. So acknowledging that, and then also saying, okay, how can I utilize everything that I have to make this easier for myself and my family? And one of the biggest things to do is to involve the children and get them involved in as much as possible, because kids inherently want to help and they want to feel like they are autonomous in the food situation. That doesn't mean that you say, okay, you do everything and I'll just sit here and twiddle my thumbs and hope that there's food on our table,
That
right?
doesn't work out.
It doesn't work out at all. It's understanding your kids and
Yeah.
their desires and abilities, because there's some kids who like literally you put food on the table and they're going to eat it and don't care. There's other
Yeah.
kids where if you don't allow them to pick out the food or pick out a recipe or stir the pot, or literally stir the pot of food, not actually stir the pot of the family, but like have hands on or have vocal decision, they will not eat it. They will not consume it. And so
Yeah.
it's understanding the kid and then understanding the dynamic between the kids and then understanding your schedule. So a lot of people wait until like Saturday or Sunday to plan, prep, and grocery shop. And on the weekends, we often have sporting events, family events,
Yeah.
parties, birthday parties, whatever it might be. And
A
so
lot.
now we're trying to cram all this meal prep planning and whatnot into like an hour on the weekend. And so I really try to push people out and say, okay, could you on Thursday or Friday the week before just zoom out and look at your week ahead and say, okay, what does this week look like and what's realistic? And something I find that really clicks for a lot of moms is when I say, okay, if you look at the schedule and Thursday night is soccer night, and you know you're not going to actually be home for more than an hour at a time, Thursday night is Chipotle night or whatever, like enter whatever takeout is.
Yep.
And the second they do that, they're like, oh my God, that like lifted a weight off of my shoulders.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Because what happens is a lot of times women, this happens anyway, right? You get to Thursday and you've eaten all your leftovers and now it's 8 o'clock and you're out with the kids and you're like, well, I guess we're getting Chipotle. So then this guilt and shame spiral happens because you're like, well, I should have cooked. I thought I had food at home. We should have planned better. As opposed to like, this was the plan. The plan was to acknowledge that we didn't have time on Thursday to cook.
Yeah.
So that's, you put that on the schedule and then you kind of backtrack and say, okay, well, Wednesday night, mom and kid one are home, but dad or other parent and other kid are gone, right? And so you can kind of like zoom out and have time to just take Thursday or Friday to just look at the lay of the land and say, okay, we have 2 nights we can actually cook.
Yep.
We have 3 nights where we're going to be out of the house, so we need either grab and go items or takeout. And now this allows there to be more flexibility and also less guilt and shame. So we can kick the guilt and shame out of the way so we can actually get the food on the table.
Yeah. And I'm going to add a fun little guilt and shame thing to it too, is if you're one of those lucky parents that has a kid that I'm not going to call it a picky eater because it isn't that. It's kids that have these supernatural abilities to taste things that you cannot taste. And they can literally have 7 hot dogs laid out in front of them and they can pick out the one that is their brand. Like they have this, and hopefully one day they will use it for good and become like the food critic for the Washington Post or something like that. But right now, not helpful. And so they only eat like 13 things. Not that I would know anything about this.
Not speaking from experience, I can tell.
And then you have the guilt of like, what did I do to screw up my kids eating? Even though like they were able to eat normally when they were younger and then so on. But like you're making 5 different meals for 4 different people. And then your parents are ringing in your head being like, why are you doing that? Everybody should eat the same thing. Like, tell me I'm not the only one here.
Well, and I think you have to do what works for you, right? I think that's the biggest lesson I have learned as a mom. And I think I've become a better practitioner because I am a mom.
Yeah.
Not saying you're not capable of being a practitioner if you're not a mom, but I feel like I can relate to moms more now because I understand that, like, yes, on paper, ideally, you cook one meal for the entire family, right? But in reality, that's not the reality for a lot of families.
No.
And so it's also an exercise I have a lot of moms do or families do is to write out a list on like your notes app of meals that are acceptable to the family and or ingredients that are acceptable to the family so that we don't have to recreate the wheel. It's
Mm,
okay if we're eating the same 3 meals every week if that means that we're eating meals.
right.
It's
Yep.
great to have these like, lofty Pinterest boards of like, oh, if I just made all this food, but if
I gave
nobody
that
eats it,
shit up a long time ago.
yeah. Oh, me too. I'm like, who has time for that? And I wrote cookbooks. Like, and, a lot of times it's just throwing ingredients together and making sure we're
Mhm.
getting a variety of food that meets the
Yep.
needs of everyone in our family.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it really, we can't sit, there is no ideal. And the people who
Yeah.
are telling you that their kids are eating everything that they're making are probably not either not paying
No,
attention to
and
their kids or it's not happening.
yeah. No, and I got real with the fact that, like, you can raise a child on Cheerios and milk. Like, there's a lot of good things in milk and Cheerios.
Listen, I grew up on a lot of mac and cheese, chicken nuggets, and hot dogs, and I turned into a dietitian who loves all food. So there's hope.
Hey, those of us born in the '70s, we got raised on Velveeta. I'm just gonna leave that one
Yeah.
there.
And look, here you are today.
I don't
Here
know if
you
that
are today
explains
doing it.
anything, but and if you don't know what Velveeta is, just Google it, like,
Mm.
just Google it. So,
Uh,
moms that come to you, like, you said you kind of you figure out where they're at, what's going on. Like, what does, working with someone like you look like? Is this something where, you come in and help them with meal planning? Is it something that you help them, develop weight loss planning? Is it all the above? Like, what do typically, people need and what do they get from somebody like you?
I am not a weight loss dietitian, so I am not anti-weight loss. I just don't help people lose weight. If they lose weight because their body is feeling safe and that's what's appropriate, great. But when people come to me, they usually are struggling with something in their health, whether it's low energy, fatigue, poor digestion, whether that's reflux, diarrhea,
Mm,
constipation, indigestion, stomach aches, whatever. They're having hormonal issues. Hormones are like the last stop on the train. So usually that means there's a ton of depletion and dysregulation and gut issues. Um, and there's usually some type of disordered eating layered in there as well. I
mm,
would say most women have some level of disordered eating. I did too. I grew up with a mom who likely had an undiagnosed eating disorder. Like I can relate in so many ways to disordered eating. And so when someone works with me, we are looking to unravel all of that diet culture belief and improve the relationship with food because the way you think about food and the way you respond to food is just as bad as the food itself, if not worse at times. And I tell my clients a lot of times, usually it's not the food, it's the environment. And the environment
mm.
can be your gut microbiome all the way to like how you think about food between your ears. So we work a lot on that like counseling piece. So I see my clients every other week to kind of talk through some of this. And then we also do some functional testing. So I look at stool testing and hair testing to look at mineral status and also gut microbiome health of how are you actually digesting, absorbing your food. Because if your gut is not working appropriately, then we're not actually gaining the nutrients that we're trying to increase. And your hair allows us to see the minerals at the tissue level and understanding how depleted or I guess I don't know what the word is, pleated, depleted, repleted, I don't know. And so, or sufficient, I guess would be the word.
Mhm.
And then usually we get blood work through your doctor as well, just to kind of like tie it all together in a nice bow. I'm very much of the belief that lab work is just that. It's a point in time. It gives us some insight into your health, but your symptoms and how you feel are so much more valuable.
Yeah.
And so many women have been told for so long to not trust themselves and have been gaslit in so many different ways, whether by themselves, their parents, the media, their doctor, whoever. And so we also work on that embodiment piece of listening to our symptoms and understanding them, not being scared of them, because we all have symptoms every single day.
Mhm.
And so it's a matter of not being scared of them and understanding them of like, oh, wow, my head hurts. God, I must have a brain tumor. Okay, no, wait, let me back up, right? Like I have a headache because I haven't touched water today.
Right.
And understanding like, oh, wow. Like I just had a client today say she was like, I was so bloated and I took a minute and realized because I didn't chew my food at all day long. And she's
Mm.
like, it was so powerful to be like, wow, that's actually a really easy change. All I have to do is chew my food. And she did, next day she did, and her bloating went down. She definitely has some other issues going on. So like we're working on that, but
Mhm.
it's amazing how some of these basics are like
Yeah.
help change so many things.
Yeah, no, the fluid thing I can totally get behind. I've worn a Whoop strap for probably since pre-pandemic, and you get on top of sleeping and all that stuff. You're like, yeah, my HRV is good, but when you get good sleep and your HRV is still down, it's like, okay, what the heck is up with that? And I realized for me, I wasn't getting
Mm,
enough fluid, throw some element in there, and all of a sudden life and HRV got a lot better. I was like, oh, it was that simple.
mm,
But
yeah.
again, it's not things that we would normally think of. It's like, oh, must be something more complex or whatever. Um, when you're having people do the stool testing and looking at the hair and that kind of stuff, what are the common depletions that you see?
A lot of women are depleted in magnesium, potassium, sometimes sodium. We're usually seeing some dysregulation of iron and copper.
Mhm.
Sometimes we're seeing low iodine, especially in my women trying to conceive and having infertility issues. Um, we see a lot of low stomach acid in my
Mm.
gut health clients, and that is actually pretty normal. I actually think we learned about it in school. Sorry, I think I have food in my teeth. Um, speaking of, so low stomach acid. So your stomach acid is supposed to be at it's supposed to be acidic, so that way it can break down your food. It's one of the first barriers to pathogens and other things that come into your stomach that shouldn't be there. It
Mm.
also helps to break down your food appropriately to the appropriate texture so that when it goes to your small intestine and to your large intestine, it doesn't have to do extra work to break it down. And so stomach acid helps to actually break down your food appropriately. Women, as they age, naturally their stomach acid goes down. We know this. We see this a lot in like the elderly population. And like I remember learning it in school and being like, why didn't we focus on this more? Like low stomach acid becomes such a problem for so many women so sooner than we think. And so being able to like look at a GI map, I can kind of look and see like, oh yeah, this person definitely has low stomach acid or low digestive enzymes, or they're not digesting the fat in their stool. So we can kind of understand like what support we need to give them. Sometimes just having that data can help people realize like, oh wow, yeah, me not sitting down to meals and chewing my food and slowing down at meal times is no wonder I'm bloated. No wonder my stomach hurts. No wonder my bowel movements are not ideal. No wonder I have reflux. Like it is that we can see in the stool that there's overgrowth, that there's low digestive enzymes, that there's high steatocrit, which is fat in your stool. We can kind of see all of that, and it's nice to see. But low stomach acid then also creates low digestion and absorption, which then creates low minerals. So it's all tied together.
Mhm.
And so a lot of times we're working on improving that stomach acid and improving mineral intake, which then increases energy, decreases, a lot of other symptoms like thyroid issues and insulin issues, et cetera.
Are you finding that there's similar kind of parallels, kind of jumping ahead to another kind of low estrogen state with perimenopause as well?
As in, like, the
Just
same
the
symptoms?
depletions and stuff, yeah, because I mean,
For
I
sure.
feel like there's so many similarities there.
Yes. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And if you don't have I mean, it's hard because your body is starting your not body, your ovaries are starting to shut down no matter what you do, right? Like, you could have the most quote unquote "perfect health," and
Mhm.
your
Yeah,
ovaries are gonna shut down. Like, that's just part of the life cycle of
yeah.
a female. And the issue is that if it shuts down too soon, too fast, like your hormones plummet too soon, you're going to be symptomatic for a lot longer because the average age of menopause is 51, 52 in this country. And they say perimenopause, it depends who you ask, can last 6 to
Right.
15 years. So like that's a really wide range. And to me, what that tells me is that like I would assume that people would have symptoms within the 5 years of their ovaries starting to shut down. But if we're
Mhm.
starting to see more and more symptoms creeping up to the 10, 15-year range,
Yeah.
to me, I'm like, is that perimenopause or is that depletion? Is that dysregulation? Is that not eating enough? Is that years and years of dieting and all that stuff? And if we
Mhm.
don't have enough food, or sorry, excuse me, enough nourishment, enough nutrients, then we can't produce hormones. Hormones are like the nice to have, they're not the need to have, right? We don't need to reproduce, we need to live. first. We need to be able to be alive and well and functioning before we can reproduce. And so, there's also this whole other topic of like cholesterol. We've been told for years and years to lower it, but if we don't have enough cholesterol is a precursor to our sex hormones. So now women are coming in with cholesterols under 160 and they're wondering why their estrogen is in the tanker before they're actually menopausal. And it's like, well, because we lowered the heck out of it and we actually needed to get it to like a normal 170 to 200. And we've been telling this woman to basically like starve herself for years. So of course she has low estrogen.
Yeah, that's why I feel like there's just a whole huge opening of information, just understanding beyond like estrogen, beyond its role as a sex hormone. And like we're, especially for us too, in pelvic health, looking at, estrogen receptors in tendons, in, the tissues and urethra, all this other stuff is like, I feel like there's so much that we don't understand, and we need to kind of consider the role, estrogen and inflammation, kind of all of that. But to your point too, what you were saying, if that perimenopause time is longer than 10 years, has it bled into or blended into postpartum? So there really is just this gray smear from postpartum into perimenopause. And around here, like my average, first time mom is like 38 to 42, which is prime, once you hit 40, that's prime early perimenopause time. So again, I think we kind of need to look back and at those things that we said for so long of like, oh yeah, perimenopause can last this long and these are the changes and so on. And look at it like from the lens that you're saying is like, hey, what was going on with your diet during this time? What's going on with how you're processing food? What's going on with your hormone flux during that time and where you were, in childbearing years and that kind of stuff. Like, I think we just need to reframe everything. We've put it in these little happy little compartments, and I don't think it really is that neat.
No,
it's not that neat.
It's not. Well, and just to your point, like there's not a ton of research on this stuff on women, period. End of story.
Yeah.
Let alone perimenopause women. I mean, that's just now coming to a head.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. I saw it was like Mary Claire Haver. She had a post the other day talking about how little research articles there were on menopause versus pregnancy. And I think she had highlighted like 1 million articles on pregnancy. And I'm like, yeah, actually, I don't think that's accurate, because if you look at all of those and take out the ones that are focused on the fetus and effect on the fetus, as opposed to maternal health and maternal postpartum issues, like I'm pretty sure we can reduce that by 3/4.
Probably, yeah,
Like,
100%.
because in this space, I got news for you. There's nothing. I mean, it's a
No.
lot better than it was a couple of years ago, but I'm like, I think we can. But again, which speaks to a point of we're in this lovely renaissance of really diving into that. And we have a lot more people interested in researching these questions, and with the WHI, kind of being clarified. People having permission and a space to talk about it. I mean, you probably have to feel this too with your, online presence and people having a space to ask questions. Like what are the most common, myths or questions that people have where you're just like, nope, that you're full of shit. That's not it. Like, let me give you the truth. Like, what are the most common questions that you get that are really kind of myths?
That's a good question. I have to think about that.
Or even just common questions that you get all over and over and over that you feel like you answer a lot.
We were talking about this the other day in like my collaborative, and I'm like, my mom brain is like alive and well. When you ask me things, I'm like, if I like, as soon as we hang up, I'm gonna be like, oh my God. But I'm like, I don't know.
No, total grace period for you. No worries.
Like, what is even happening in my brain? Like, people ask me stuff all the time. I feel like people are always asking about supplements, right? Everyone wants to know what they can supplement with. So I'm constantly clearing up stuff about that, of like what's necessary. Like, I think a lot, actually one question I've been getting a ton lately of what supplements do I need in perimenopause? And I think that's a total wrong question, but I understand where it's coming from.
There's a little drama going on over there, by the way.
Is there?
Yeah. You tell me yours and I'll tell you mine.
Oh my God. Well, I feel like I'm probably not as immersed in that space because I'm, in the postpartum space more as like on a personal level. But yeah, I just get asked all the time, like, what supplements should I be taking in perimenopause? And to me, that's like, my answer is always like, well, it depends. I don't know you. I don't know what
Right.
you need. And every person, I can't sit here and say, I probably could sit here and say that most women could probably benefit from creatine. Like we're
Mhm.
seeing a ton of great research on that, but I
Yep.
still don't know you. I don't know your kidney
Right.
health. I don't know your past history. So like you might not be a great candidate for creatine. So yeah, it depends, but I've seen that question a lot recently and I'm like, I don't know where that's
Yeah.
coming from. So if you have insight, great.
Well, and that's where I think, we need to get better. Consumers, you need to get better at asking questions. We're always going to say it depends. I'm sorry. That's just what the answer is going to be. And unless you are our particular client, we can't speak to, because there's nuances to it. But like, if you want to know about creatine, ask, what do you know about research surrounding creatine? Like ask a general high level question. We'll give you that answer. We can't give you specific to you. Um, unless we dive into the weeds a little bit more. And we're not going to do that in DMs. I'm pretty sure you don't do it either. So
No, ain't nobody got time for that. Also,
no,
like not great legally.
no. But I mean, I get people that send me pictures of their nether regions all the time. And like, do you think this is, I'm like, okay, not even opening that. Like,
Oh
I
my
can't diagnose
God.
you. Like, I can give you general advice. I am not looking at your pictures. Like,
Good Lord, people.
but it also speaks to, and that's where I try and step back and have some compassion and being like, okay, clearly you're not getting answers that you're looking for. You're not being listened to. The fact that you're resorting to some rando person that you don't even know on the internet, and sending pictures of your vagina.
Right.
I will usually counter it with, where are you in the world and how can I help you find a resource that will listen to you? And unfortunately, lots of times it's in parts of the world that, I may or may not have a resource. But the supplement drama as it stands, um, if you want to read a really good article about it, Daniel Friedman, who is a women's health writer, I want to say it might have been in the New York Times. She did a really good article in maybe November 2024, called The Queen's Gambit of Menopause. And so she interviewed a lot of the big heavy hitters. So heavy hitters that are vocal in the space, one being Mary Claire Haver, who's a bit controversial because she is a physician, but she also sells supplements and has a meal company and that sort of thing. You might have run across her.
Mhm.
She has done a lot to bring about awareness and conversations of menopause. They also interviewed Dr. Jen Gunter, who is in this space as well, a GYN. She's very, she kind of went up against Gwyneth Paltrow years ago about the weirdo jade eggs and all that kind of stuff. She's very straightforward and was like, hey, do you guys know that she's selling supplements? Mary Claire Haver's like, yes, I sell supplements. Like, we don't need to eat our own people. People should be able to make their own decisions. Everybody's being open about it. And then the Menopause Society has come in and less conversation about supplements, but more on kind of menopause hormone therapy, having conversations about, these are what the recommendations are. I know, people are having other conversations about other stuff. It's less about supplements, but which it's a very well written article. I understand it, having worked on the institutional end of organizations and understanding how if you put out guidelines and things like that, it takes a long time it's slow to turn big ships. And I also understand that when you're in private sector, things go a lot faster. But anyway, it's a good conversation. But that all goes to say that we still have to have more research on this, understanding, third-party research and where you buy supplements from and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's the tea on
Interesting.
supplements. But I mean, I have similar questions too. But again, I come back to, well, where are my needs? What's my unique situation? There's data about they're looking at, the benefits of creatine. But again, like, is it something that's beneficial for me in particular? So I feel like that's where there's this million-foot question of, are we equipped to make our own medical decisions? Is it you do you, or are you doing your own research? And then if you're researching, are you actually reading good research and good vetted information? And really, do we just need somebody to listen to us and know that the answer is evidence informed? So that's a very big question. Now you
Well,
know.
and I think I think supplements sometimes become like the gold standard or whatever of like, if I
Yeah.
just take the right supplements, I'll feel better. And supplements are literally supposed to supplement. They're not meant to make everything
Yep.
better. Like they're
Yep.
supposed to support the basics and of
Yeah.
what your basic needs are through food and lifestyle and community and connection and movement, etc. And
Yeah.
so I think that a lot of our hopes and our dreams fall on supplements when really like they're just meant to supplement. Like they're not
Yeah.
going to fix everything. So
Yeah. I think wouldn't it be great if we took that one thing that just made us feel better?
yeah, I mean,
And
we all
again,
would love that.
yeah. Yeah, of course. And again, this is where if you go back to somebody who can help you figure out what that one thing might be, they can actually point you to the right one thing. And so you're not throwing darts at a dartboard and hoping
Well, that's
based.
the other thing is that I think that, a lot of people will then ask like, "Well, what's the right time to take a supplement?" I'm like, "Well, when are you gonna remember it?"
Yeah.
Because like, really, if you're not consistent with it and you're not gonna remember it, it doesn't matter if you take it at the optimal time.
Yeah. Well, and
Because
also again, understanding the delivery mode of certain things, like certain things are absorbed in certain ways, and the way that which you're taking it, it was never going to be absorbed that way that you needed it to be. So it's a lot more complex than I think people realize. But again, if you're scrolling and you want to click and feel better, I think it falls into that category. But it can be beneficial if used in an appropriate way with somebody that knows you and knows your situation. So.
well, and I think the
Um,
issue too, and I'm sure you run into this as well, is that a lot of doctors are not giving the guidance because they don't know.
mhm. Yep.
It's not their scope to really know nutrition and supplementation
Right.
outside of the very like
Oh,
obvious deficiencies. And so
I
like with PT, right? Like it's hard to
same thing.
get a referral. Whereas, like, that's what dietitians are for. We are
Yeah.
meant to be the experts in nutrition and supplementation and vitamin and mineral metabolism.
Mhm.
And so when you go to your doctor and you complain about whatever it might be, the doctor is likely going to prescribe something or diagnose something. What their that's their
Yep.
job. Their job is likely not going to be like,
Right.
"Oh, let's try this magnesium supplement because you're, complaining of anxiety." They're going to be like, "Oh, here's a prescription."
Right. Well, and
So,
I think it's recognized in certain ways. I have a dear friend of mine who is a diabetes educator and dietitian who works with diabetes. I feel like that's kind of like a no brainer, but I feel like I we need to be cognizant of where those limitations are with our physician's advice. And again, I agree with you. I feel like we're in the same wheelhouse in that respect. I had a client the other day. She was mentioning some issues she was having to her physician. And he's like, "Oh, go on the Mediterranean diet." And like, she's like, Really? Like, that's what you got?" Like,
oh,
and I said to her, I said, "What you need to understand is now you know, that's not what you should expect from him. Just like you should not expect to have exercise advice from your OBGYN. You shouldn't expect nutrition advice from your OBGYN. You also should not expect me to know how to deliver your baby or to do a C-section. Like, I know that sounds really stupid, but like if you know where their limitations are, but you know that there's people that their literal day job is to do this, you're going to get much better advice. Don't expect me to change your tire. Like, I'm
right,
not.
right.
Don't ask your fix it guy to give you a workout program. Like, let's just be
No.
upfront about all this stuff.
Right, but we do. You're right. We go to our doctor, but the general, we go to your doctor and expect everything and say, okay, well,
Yeah,
I'm going for this problem. Then they're going to give me the fix. Well, no, they're going to be able to do what
yeah.
they're capable of. And
It's not
likely, if you
Target.
go right, if you go, yes, like if you go for anxiety, they're going to give you anxiety
Mhm.
medication. Like
Mhm.
hopefully they're educated enough to also recommend therapy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, do you have anxiety because you're depleted? Like, you probably need to also make sure your nutrition is on par. And yeah, the Mediterranean diet is the new thing for them to push. And like, what does that even mean? Like,
Is that new? Because I feel like we did that
yeah,
20 years ago.
that's true. Well, I feel like it goes in waves of what they recommend, but
Yeah.
it depends what they're recommending. But lately, it has been Mediterranean diet.
I
I feel
think
like
that
what,
Blue Zone thing came out and everybody's like, "Oh, I gotta do that again."
yeah, the good old. blue zones where they threw out so much data to get the answers that they wanted.
Thank
And
you,
so,
Netflix.
yeah, right. Well,
There
Netflix is
was
headed by a lot of
Oh,
plant-based
really?
people.
Well,
So
they have a lot of the food things I can't watch on there because I just know they're kind of trash, and yeah, I
I
can't. There
usually
was
like
the
to watch so I have some rage content
Yeah,
to rant
no,
about.
I think you have to choose your poison. I'm like, I can't, I don't really have room to crack
Well,
that
I
egg on my
also have to
plate.
live. I also have
You have to
to
do it anyway.
understand, right? Like my clients are going to come to me and say, "I want to do this because I watched a
Yeah.
documentary," and I'm like, "Well, I should watch it so I know what
No,
you're
that's
talking
true.
about."
That's true. I have to
Unfortunately,
know about the weirdo exercise things and influencers that just like randomly, they had it. Well, it's kind of like, Peloton when they didn't do anything and then all of a sudden one of their coaches got pregnant. No, apparently we're doing postpartum now. Like magnify that times like every influencer
yes,
ever.
yes. Honestly, it's so.
All right, if we're going to talk about rage watching and collaborative issues across the spectrum of pregnancy and postpartum, let's chat a little bit about you have a group that you have co-founded, the Unconventional Collaborative, that you pull different providers together. And what's the purpose of that? What do you guys do?
So I met my friend Danielle, who's a physician assistant, over the internet because we were basically chatting about, influencers who were recommending things and getting really frustrated with conventional medicine, missing the mark on so many people. And so we became friends because we had similar beliefs around our clients. We constantly were texting each other, like, I have this client who, and I used to work in a hospital setting, and there were many things I did not like about it, but the major thing I did like about it was the collaboration. I could go and
Yeah.
talk to the doctor, the PT, the speech language pathologist, the OT.
Yep.
And so we could do collaborative care for our clients. And I also could learn from them. I loved learning, like seeing a swallow study done on a patient so I could understand what dysphagia actually looked like, so I could
Yep.
understand the consistency of the food that needed to be
Yeah.
provided. And so I really miss that as a private practice owner because I really don't see anybody.
Yep.
I'm over telehealth with my clients and that's it. And so I'm also not the person that just takes things at face value. So when a client starts complaining about something, I'm like, okay, that's not adding up. So I would text her because she is a wealth of knowledge. And then she'd be like, I don't know, but let me text so and so. And so I'm constantly texting her and other people to be like, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? And I was like, at some point we were both like, we can't be alone. Like we cannot be alone in
Yeah.
this feeling of like, we want to do better by our clients and we want to learn more as
Mhm.
providers. Like we need a place where we can all go that's not Facebook to basically be able to like collaborate and talk to one another and learn
Yeah.
from one another and also be able to like bring up tough clients and understand. And sometimes it's not even a tough client. It's just that like you forget sometimes, like, do everything. And they're like, oh my God, I forgot to check a vitamin D. But you say it. And now your colleagues are telling you like, hey, did you check vitamin D? You're like, oh my God, I forgot that. But like, that's collaborative care. We should all,
Yeah.
working in a silo helps nobody. And so we created the Unconventional Collaborative to be able to have these unconventional discussions about health and also be able to talk to providers across all different disciplines. I have learned so much there's dentists in there. I've learned so much recently about airway health and like
Mm.
there's a whole spectrum of sleep apnea. And
Yep.
a lot of women need to be tested and screened for sleep apnea because if they're not breathing appropriately overnight, a lot of times it's not like overt sleep apnea. It's like an airway issue. And so
Yep.
then they're not getting deep sleep. And when we're not getting deep sleep, it's not regulating your hormones or your insulin. It's causing weight loss
Yeah.
resistance. It's all these other things. So I've learned so much from all these different providers,
Yep.
which is so cool. And I love what it's growing to become. And then we're bringing in guest speakers, like you're coming to talk to us. Like we have a bunch of guest speakers coming in each month to educate us on all different topics so that we can further our education so that we're providing better care for our clients. And then a lot of referring goes back and forth between these
Yep.
clients because now it's like, just like you said, like the doctor is not going to be the end point for you. You
Right.
might need,
It's the beginning.
I can't tell you how many pelvic floor PTs I send my clients to. Like I work
Yep.
with some women who have 14 years postpartum and they never once set foot in a pelvic
Yep.
floor setting, but they have, recurrent UTIs, which then puts them on antibiotics, which then messes their gut health. And it's like, it was never a UTI in the first place. It was a pelvic
Vaginal
floor dysfunction.
estrogen. That
Or
too.
right, or that too, right? Like, so we're just putting women on these antibiotics, which then it's all
Yeah. No, no,
connected.
no. Yeah, no, it
Um,
all is, and I feel like, I don't know why it takes a bunch of women in a room together or in a telehealth room together or whatever that is, to be like, why don't we take better care of ourselves? And it should take a group of us because we all have something to bring to the table. It shouldn't just be that one person.
No, and
Yeah.
it's I've learned so much, and
Yeah.
it's also nice to be in a setting of women who just wanna build each other up, who don't
Hmm.
feel like we're competition, but instead feel like we're just collaborating, and that, like, me
Yep.
telling you about what I just learned about something is not going to now, I'm not your competition. Like, there's enough
Right.
people in this world who need our help, and
Yep.
the rising tide lifts all ships. I truly believe that, and so that's
Yeah.
what we're doing in there, and we're really trying to also, like, set a different standard for women's health.
Yeah.
And there are, a lot of us do touch base with men as well, but for the majority of us, like, I would say 90% of my clients are women, and the men
Hmm.
I treat are their partners and boyfriends and
Right.
dads,
And you're
like,
just easy.
yeah, yeah,
And they trust you. Yeah.
right, correct.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it was a CrossFit coach that I had worked with that she had connected us. And she was always somebody that I was just so impressed with because she was always looking to kind of improve her offerings for people and improve her resources for her clients and things like that. And again, I wish that wasn't unique, but I
I know.
do think it is sometimes that you have that provider that's willing to go that extra step to help find that resource. And for those of us that, I do the same thing. I have people where I'm like, okay, I have a question about this. Who am I going to text? And I might do it right in front of a patient. I'm like, hey, give me a second. Let me get an answer to this so I can get right back to you so that we can keep going. But it's very much that like, let's solve this together mentality that I think is so refreshing and so nice to be a part of. That we're all trying to work together to solve the same thing. It's not just, I did my job and I'm going on to the next thing.
Right, or
And
like, I know everything, like we said, like, I don't know everything. That's like, I feel like now that I have come in contact with pelvic floor PTs or dentists, I'm like,
yeah,
"Ooh, this is what they've been talking about." So now there's this also, like, whole window of, like, I know who to refer to, because I also think
right.
a lot of doctors or providers don't know who to refer to,
Hmm.
so they
Yep.
literally just, "Well, here's the med, like, this is all I know." Whereas,
Right.
like, I could never stop there because 'cause I'm like, that's not gonna do enough." But I'm like,
Yep.
"Wait, you have this problem. This is the person that you need to go talk to,"
Right.
and right? Like, I think we just have to, in order to see
Yep.
results for the general public, we have to work together, and we
Yeah.
have to refer to one another and
Yep.
and understand that, like, we're not supposed to know everything.
Right. No, and the longer I've been at this, the less I've realized that I know. And
Yes.
but again, for me, that's actually comforting because when you think you're supposed to have the answer and you don't, it's very it's hard. You're like, I feel like I should have this answer. But when you can lay out, hey, here's the part where is kind of my wheelhouse and where I'm responsible, but there might be these other areas that we need to consider. That's actually quite freeing because it's not all my fault if I can't figure it out. But I'm like, I don't know the answer, but I think I know someone who does. That's so much better.
So
That's
much
so much
better.
better.
Yes. That
And
was
then
one of
you,
the biggest lessons I learned as a dietetic
yeah.
intern. My preceptor told me, she was like, "I never care if you don't know the answer. What I
Yeah.
care is that you are willing to find out or find someone who can help you
Hmm.
learn or get closer to that answer."
Yep.
Like, saying "I don't know" is
Hmm.
okay. Saying "I don't know, but I will look into it," or "I will
Yep.
ask somebody," or "I will find someone who does know,"
Yep.
is far more powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. The sooner you learn that. And again, if you're looking for a provider, this if they say I don't know, that's a good thing.
Yes.
It's the ones that have the big egos that their answer is the only answer, and if it's doesn't fix your problem, then it's your fault. Walk
God, yeah.
away, run away.
Yes. Seriously, run. There's so many of them too. Run.
Oh, yeah, we could have a whole podcast on that.
Yes.
Ooh. All right, at the end of every episode, we have a couple of questions that we ask. First one here, what's a book you're reading or podcast that you're listening to right now?
I am currently reading the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. She also wrote The Court of Thorn and Roses. I'm obsessed.
Oh, is that the dragon smut?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I
There's
have
a
another friend, Dr. Christina Previtt. She's a physio who does postpartum and geriatric research in Canada. She's also gone through the dragon smut phase. I am not there yet, but I hear it's delightful.
I tried to get into it once and I was like, this is stupid. What's going on? And then I like gave it time and then I
Okay.
could not put it down. And
Okay.
currently I'm just like still in a season of life where I'm nursing my son overnight. So like I fall asleep way too easily. So it's
Mhm.
taken me a very long time, but it's so good.
Okay. Maybe I will check back in when I get to my dragon smut phase. Or at least I'll connect you to in a book club or something like
Yeah, it's so
that.
great. I love it so much.
All right. Favorite activity since becoming a mom?
Honestly, doing the things I love with my kids. Like
Hmm.
we go snowboarding with my
Nice.
kids. We, take them on walks and swim. Now my oldest is swimming. Like I just doing the things I love with them is
Yeah.
so much fun.
Where are you in the world? I don't even know.
Upstate New York, Albany area.
You didn't get any lake effect this time, did you? You're too far east,
We don't get lake
right?
effect,
Yeah.
no, and we don't get coastal. So we just get like we have snow, but it's
Mhm.
usually never a ton and usually
Yeah,
never zero. It's like somewhere in between. So
I gotcha.
it's
Yeah,
manageable.
sometimes if the winds are strong. So I grew up south of Rochester. So if the winds were right, it would skip right over Rochester and dump right on us.
Mm,
Which I was a Nordic skier, so that is always really nice too. But yeah, I miss the snow. I'm sad.
mm,
Sad in New York for me.
I feel.
All right, one piece of advice for moms.
Oh, honestly, um, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? You should have a heavy hand in unfollowing people on social media.
Ooh,
Yeah, I
that's
did
a good
this.
one.
In my postpartum anxiety phase after my first son, one of the biggest things I was doing was constantly scrolling, and there was so much mom advice, and there is so much mom advice no matter what season of momming you're in, and it can be so overwhelming and crippling. It makes you feel like you are doing everything wrong, or that your
Mhm.
kid is doing everything wrong. And there's certainly some benefits to social media, like there are some great educators out there, but seriously, like unfollow if you're following something that's making you feel like complete garbage, like unfollow.
Yeah. I think, for those of us that we weren't blessed with social media while we had our kids, we had Facebook, but it was just sharing pictures. There still was a version of that. You would go to like playgroup or you go to mommy and me yoga and you get it's all the mom shaming and this and that, whatever. I don't know if that will ever die, even if you unfollow. But I think the sentiment holds true where you don't need all that crap.
No, nope. And if you can unfollow in real life, do that too.
Yes, no, I think that's a good one. You may have friends that don't serve you, and maybe they weren't your friends after all. Moving on. Who's
Amen.
somebody in your spot? Ooh, I can't. Where'd that come up from? Where's somebody in your space that we should know about? Like who are you fangirling over right now?
Oh, I'm not a fangirl really.
Who are you like? I'd like to hang out with you because you have the same amount of sassiness that I do.
That's a
Who's giving
great
you that vibe?
question. I don't know.
Okay. Well, who are some people in your collaborative?
Well, I hang out with a lot of them already.
Okay. So, well, tell us who are they? We don't know who they are.
In the pregnancy postpartum space,
Yeah.
well, first off, my midwife is amazing, Lisa Preller. She has an office in Albany. She's in our collaborative,
Cool.
and she helped deliver my second child, and that was the best pregnancy experience I've ever had. I've had three, but only two live births, and she was phenomenal. My pelvic floor PT is in the group. Heather, I think you probably know her,
What's Heather's last name?
Tremblay Cruteau.
Okay.
She's amazing. Gosh. I mean, my business partner, Danielle, she's amazing. But like I said, I hang out with all these people. I try to surround myself with people that I actually love. And I try to be the dumbest person in the room at all times because I love
You
learning from the
you
people.
can fangirl over friends. I have many Instagram friends who I have never met in real life that I fangirl over daily because I just think they're freaking phenomenal and I wish they lived closer. So
God, isn't that
you
the truth?
right? We're gonna have like a secret we've decided we're having a seasonal secret retreat. One will be in the winter and we can ski a little bit, and then the summer one we'll
Love
find a
that.
nice
Love
location.
that.
We're not going to tell anybody, and we're just going to show up and just like talk about cool shit.
Sounds amazing.
We're going to save the world while we're at it. All right, last question here. What does it mean to you to be an active mom?
Honestly, it's about having the energy to be able to keep up with my kids and be able to move my body the way I want to without any pressure to perform. And I mean, I probably lift a couple of times a week. I run, but I don't have any goals right now. I don't think that that's good or bad. That's where I am in the season of life, but I really want to be able to, it's not even about necessarily like hitting a workout. It's literally being able to have like this postpartum. I have so much energy compared to my first because I learned so much from a nutrition standpoint.
Yep.
And being able to just like show up with no anxiety and like play with my kids or watch my kids play or just like, it doesn't mean that every day is perfect. Like there's certainly days where I'm overstimulated and overwhelmed, but just being able to like chase after them or, go to the pool with my son. And, I was an ex-swimmer. So like being in the pool with him is the coolest thing ever, of like watching someone for the first time learn how to swim. Like that to me, without worry that I can't do it. I think that's what's really fun. And, I come from a background of high performing and high achieving. And so it's really nice to be in a place where I don't feel disordered around movement. It's just moving my body so that I can have fun. I can't wait to go snowboard. I didn't get to snowboard last year because I was pregnant. So I get to snowboard this season. And my husband worked so hard to get my son snowboarding last season. And so he's almost ready to do it on his own.
That's a lot of work.
So I'm so excited.
What mountain do you guys go to?
We have like a local bump that we'll go to just like to get him to learn. But Stratton in Vermont is usually where we go.
That's nice. So. Yeah, our kids, we got them downhilling, I guess about between 3 and 4. And we had a dear friend of ours that she grew up skiing and helped us navigate that with. Yeah, that's a lot of work.
Luckily, I feel like we've met a lot of people like you who have done it, and they're all like, it's so much work and it's so worth it. Like
it's so nice now to be able to
you can just go.
Yep, it's so nice now to be able to just like ski with them, and it's super fun. Even my teenager will give me an occasional smile. So it's awesome. That's awesome. All right. If you'd like to know more about Laura, you can find her on Instagram, the Sassy Dietitian, and you can find out more about the Unconventional Collaborative, unconventional.collaborative on Instagram as well. Laura, thanks so much for talking to us about all that you do and sharing a bit of your story. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
If you're navigating pregnancy, postpartum, or perimenopause, whether personally or professionally, check out all our free resources and upcoming courses at carriepagliano.com. This podcast reflects the opinions of Dr. Carrie Pagliano and her guests, and it is for entertainment purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. Always consult your healthcare provider with any medical questions. If you enjoyed the episode, please take a moment to leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. And thanks for listening.